everyone, it's that time of week again. My favourite time of the week where we look at my top 10 wrestlers of the week. But you may have noticed that it's one day early on the channel, and if you watched last week's video, then you'll know why. But I'll just refresh your memory because I know that we've all had a busy old week and maybe you've just forgotten. And I wouldn't blame you. I'm Jack from Cultaholic.com and welcome to a one day early special of Wrestlers of the Week. Now, as I say, it is Thursday, not Friday, so Wrestlers of the Week is taking place one day early. A special little treat for you, and I'll explain why. Basically, tonight is the official sort of start of WrestleMania weekend. There's a few indie shows popping off all over New Orleans, Louisiana, and because of that reason, next week on Friday, the traditional Wrestlers of the Week day, I want to do a special double-length Wrestlers of the Week where there's 20 points up for grabs, or 1 to 20, rather than the standard 1 to 10. I think that's fair considering the sheer amount of matches and different feuds going on and all the different promotions running shows at WrestleMania weekend. So I just think that's a nice fair way of doing it, and maybe it'll let some of the chasing pack really catch up with Will Ospreay and Sabre Jr. But let's get straight into this week's list, starting off with number 10, Jimmy Havoc. Jimmy Havoc is one of my favourite British indie wrestlers. He's not my typical sort of favourite wrestler because he's largely a deathmatch guy, but I know that deathmatches have a place in wrestling, even if it's quite a grisly, hard to watch place sometimes. Havoc is well known for his time in Progress. He really did a lot to elevate Progress into the upper reaches of the UK independent scene, because he held the belt for a long time and was a tremendous bastard heel while doing it. But he's not on this week's list for that reason. He's on for a match he had up in ICW, north of the border, at 8 Gays. Time to go up to Scotland and have a look at some of the matches up there. I'm terribly sorry, I don't know what came over me. Havoc, if you'll forgive that awful accent, Havoc had a match against a man known as Mikey Whiplash. Not Mikey Whipwreck, the late 90s ECW underdog and phenom, but Mikey Whiplash, the face paint wearing, bondage wearing ICW heel. He and Havoc had a death match, and Havoc proved once again why he is regarded as the king of the death match by many indie wrestling fans. He's been over to CZW, he's won Tournament of Death, he's done various different death matches against various different opponents, and this week marks his first foray onto the list because he did some hellish things in this match and received some hellish things as well. There were two key spots I want to talk about. One was when he took just a fistful of sticks, stuck them in Whiplash's head and then let go, and we got that nice visual of Whiplash with all the sticks in his head. I've not made it sound quite as horrible as it was. It was very horrible indeed. And another big spot was when Whiplash ran with Havoc on his shoulders and put him through just a pane of glass, and it made a lovely sound. Check out ICW's YouTube channel for the highlights of that match, or you can check out their on-demand service if you want to watch the match in full. But it was grim. It was very grim. But, you know, grimness sometimes works in wrestling, and for that reason, Jimmy Havoc, welcome to the list. Number 9, Finn Balor. He and Seth Rollins had an excellent TV match on this week's Monday Night Raw, the go-home show before WrestleMania, and like as go-home shows often are, not a lot really happened on the show in terms of storylines. I mean, The Undertaker didn't even come out to answer John Cena's challenge, so we can only assume that he's not going to be showing up at WrestleMania. I'm joking, of course, I'm not an idiot. But in terms of action itself on Monday Night Raw, there was nothing better than Rollins versus Balor. Balor is a man who I think could well win the Intercontinental Championship on Sunday in New Orleans, just because I think WWE haven't really given him the rewards he deserves since that unfortunate injury the day after he won the Universal Championship, when he had to, vacate the belt. And since then, it's been held by Owens, Goldberg and Lesnar, and no one else has really got too serious of a look at. I think maybe if they put Balor over at WrestleMania, WWE could really give him a path back to the upper reaches of the card. Of course, there were rumours that Vince didn't think he was very over with the crowd, which led to some hilarious tweets by Finn, some very cheeky tweets indeed, where he made various plays on the word over. And if you know that wrestling isn't real like I do, you'll know that over means popular with the crowd. Don't say you never learn anything here on Wrestlers of the Week. I'm sure that's new information to you. I only learned it the other day, about 2 days ago. Number 8, picking up 3 points, Balor's opponent, Seth Rollins. I want to talk about Rollins because for my money, he is one of the best wrestlers in WWE, and maybe since his excellent title reign in 2015, maybe he hasn't had too much to shout about ever since. I feel like Rollins should be holding a top title, not the Intercontinental Championship, a top title once again. He's that damn good. As proven again in this match against Balor, where both guys really went all out to impress. Rollins has had a very good year so far in WWE. I actually think he may be the highest placed main roster WWE superstar on this very list right now. Rollins, I want to win on Sunday, but I don't think he will. I think we'll either see Balor win it or maybe The Miz will retain. I think Rollins is the least favourite going into the match, but in my heart, I want my boy Seth to pick that belt up and wave it at the crowd and go, look at me, I'm a champion again. that went weird at the end, didn't it? That went weird. But in summary, Rollins is brilliant. He deserves a title, maybe not the Intercontinental Championship, maybe something even better, but I don't think he will. But anyway, it was a great match on Raw. Rollins also had a great Elimination Chamber performance, and of course the week before that had a great hour-plus performance on Raw where he proved himself to be WWE's marathon man. So I'm glad he's picked up a few cheeky points this week and continues his gradual ascent up the Wrestlers of the Week table. At number 7, a man who at the start of the year, if you'd asked me, Jack, do you think this guy will feature prominently on the list? I would have gone, you big idiot, you absolute loser. Stop talking to me, turn around and leave the building immediately. Get off the premises. Security, escort this man from my presence. But no, you'd have proven me wrong because Buddy Murphy is really rocketing up the table at a pretty steady rate right now, guys. He had another wonderful match on 205 Live. He is arguably, at least in the past few weeks, 205 Live's MVP. He had a great match against Kalisto and really established himself as, I think, the next in line. Maybe not to hold the Cruiserweight Championship, but certainly to have a big marquee match for the title, maybe even on a pay-per-view. And I don't think anyone will complain about that given the quality of Murphy's performances over the past month or so. Also, I'd just like to apologise again for that joke I made last week, but it bears repeating, I guess. I'm going to just do it again. Like a mother giving birth to triplets, it's good to see that his push is still going. That didn't get better with age. Didn't age too well, that. Number 6, Murphy's opponent Kalisto. Stop, collaborate, and listen, because I've... Stop right there, because Kalisto gets a bad rap, I feel. A lot of people remember that awful promo he cut backstage once where he went, I'm going to do a good lucha thing. That wasn't ideal, Kalisto. A lot of people also saw him as just an interchangeable member of the Lucha Dragons alongside Sin Cara, and whoever's played the Sin Cara figure in WWE has never enjoyed the greatest of prominence, but I think that Kalisto really deserves more credit than he gets a lot of the time. I was very impressed indeed with him this week in his match against Buddy Murphy. You often forget, just because it's Kalisto, how great he is in the ring. His nimbleness and his athleticism and all the rest of it. Everything you want in a lucha babyface. The only issue I think Kalisto has is maybe his size first of all, but that's becoming less and less relevant as the wrestling industry develops. But I think also his big problem may be his charisma, not even just his promo charisma, but his expressions and stuff and the way that he reacts in the ring. Always difficult for a masked wrestler to do, but I think he's improving at that. I think this week he really did play a good babyface to Murphy's vicious heel. There were some really good moves. Definitely check this match out if you haven't seen it already. And yeah, I just think we all need to hashtag give Kalisto a chance. Number 5, I bet you thought he'd be higher on this list this week, didn't you? But Sabre Jr. is my number 5. Now, I couldn't not include him on the list because he had one of the best matches of the week, the main event of Sakura Genesis against Kazuchika Okada for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. But I thought, right, now this is going to sound a little bit harsh, but I've been really kind to Zach all throughout Wrestlers of the Week, so I guess I can give a little bit of criticism. I thought that maybe Zach's style and the way that this match was put together meant that it was robbed of a little bit of its potential. Zach's run through the New Japan Cup was excellent and was weighted perfectly and paced really well, and he was just tapping out guys that you would never expect him to. But in this match, where nobody really seriously bought him winning, I think his slow submission-based game may have sapped the energy a little bit of the audience, especially at the end of such a jam-packed, action-filled show. Now, that's not to say that I thought Zach gave a bad performance at all, otherwise he wouldn't be on Wrestlers of the Week. I just think that it could have been tailored slightly to make more sense in the context of that match and in the context of the event. I think he could have maybe wrestled a slightly higher pace and a slightly more hard-hitting pace. And I know that this is going to give two sort of reactions online. There's going to be people saying, yes, Jack, I agree with you, Zach's boring. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying he's boring at all. He's, of course, the leader of the league table. Why would he be up there if I thought he was boring? Come on, guys. But also, there's going to be people saying, Jack, you uneducated peasant, watch Zach's matches and appreciate the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, the grappling, the movement. And I do appreciate those things, but I've just explained why I think he doesn't deserve really to be in the very upper reaches of the list this week. Just this week. Don't just this week. Number 4, for my money, the greatest heel in wrestling in the present day, Cody Rhodes. Cody was part of a very exciting tag match alongside Bullet Club member Adam Page against the Golden Lovers, Kenny Omega and Kota Ibushi. Now Cody, is he the best heel in wrestling at the moment? It's him or Ciampa, isn't it? Let me know what you think in the comments below, but I think it could well be Cody. He's really come on leaps and bounds in the last few months in terms of not just his character work, but his in-ring performances as well. This was a really good showing by Cody. He was the most impressive guy in the match for my money, and he was helped out a lot in a weird way. This sounds weird, but he was caught by a nasty kick from Kenny Omega, which cut him right above his eye, and pretty soon his face was like a mess. It was a crimson mask, and it made him look devious. It was one of those kind of happy accidents. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm glad he got cut open, but it was one of those happy accidents that gave the match just that little bit more gravitas and made him look like even more of a despicable man. I liked it. I liked it. It was nasty, but I liked it. Cody, of course, could pick up even more points next week because he is in one of the matches to see at WrestleMania weekend, one of the marquee matches for my money, the main event of Supercard of Honor, him versus Kenny Omega, the two Bullet Club leaders going at it. And I think that Cody could well pick up a fair few points and really start to become one of the front runners on the Wrestlers of the Week league table. Number 3, the other participant in that Sakura Genesis main event, Kazuchika Okada, who I thought looked a lot more comfortable than Zack on that grand stage. I mean, that's an obvious point. Why wouldn't he look that comfortable? He is Kazuchika Okada, the most successful IWGP heavyweight champion of all time in terms of days with the belt. Not in terms of defenses quite yet. And that's a crucial point because not only did Okada really impress with his wrestling, as he always does, he also set himself up, or was set up, for potentially a match of the year. Potentially. After he'd seen off Zack after a really long, grueling match, he was then challenged by Hiroshi Tanahashi, his old foe. Before he was feuding with Okada before it was cool, before Omega made it cool and all the hipsters jumped on board. Tanahashi was doing it before anybody really knew just how good Okada was. Tanahashi really helped develop Okada, and everyone sort of saw how good Okada was because of the feud. I can't wait for that match, and I think that if it goes really well, it could well be match of the year. 2 years ago, I think, or was it 3 years ago, they had my match of the year in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom, and I just think it could be match of the year again. They have unbelievable chemistry. Maybe the same level of chemistry as Okada has with Omega. So it's tremendously exciting times for Okada, and finally he has what he needed the most, a match where he's not definitely going to be the winner, because he was starting to turn into a little bit of a Roman Reigns, a little bit of a Cena, but without using 5 moves, he used about 17 moves instead. But Okada could win this whole thing. He could win this whole damn thing, guys. It's Action Stations. I just spat everywhere. Number 2, a man who I think appeared quite a lot earlier on in this series, back in the OG January-February days, but maybe not too much recently, Marty Skirl, who of course challenged Ospreay for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship at Sakura Genesis, and did a very clever thing indeed. Marty's master plan, I guess, was to ditch pretty much all the comedy. He kept all of his charisma and all of his personality, but he ditched all the Bullet Club shenanigans and all the silly stuff he was doing as part of that storyline, and it works in that storyline, but here he needed to get his serious hat on, and he certainly did. I mean, he looked like the villain again. He looked the most villainous he has in a very long time, especially the bit where he was just stamping on Ospreay's heady. Ooh, that was a bit mean, wasn't it, Marty? You cheeky old man. Young man, old man. Another part I really liked was when Ospreay went for the Os Cutter, Marty went for the chicken wing. They both called out their moves, like in Digimon. And then Ospreay reversed even that. And it really showed the story of how like both men know each other so very well. And you couldn't tell who was going to win, especially because Marty has had Ospreay's number so much throughout their history and their rivalry that stretched back for the past like 3 or 4 years, maybe even longer, maybe even 5 years on the UK independent scene. And finally, my Wrestler of the Week, and a selection which has severe consequences for the Wrestlers of the Week league table. I think you've probably guessed it already. My Wrestler of the Week, once again, is Will Ospreay. That's right, Will picks up the full 10 points, and that's because this match was the best match of the week, and he gave the best performance of the week. It doesn't get much more simple than that, but I'll delve into it a little bit. Ospreay, like Cody, was horribly cut open in this match and may well have like really hurt himself. I think he's been medically cleared to compete actually this weekend at WrestleMania weekend in New Orleans, but for a while it was looking a bit ropey for Ospreay. Basically what happened was he went to give Marty a Spanish fly on the apron, the move where one of them catches the other, does a backflip, the other one does a front flip, and it's all a bit, ooh, flippy-doo, look at us, we're athletic, but it also makes sense in the context of a wrestling match. Really good new age kind of wrestling move. But this one was on the apron, not in the middle of the ring, and Ospreay really caught his head on the apron as they hit the floor, and it was really nasty, guys. It did cut him open, he was bleeding a lot, and looked quite dazed, but managed to pull through, not just pull through, but wrestle an excellent match. A match worthy, according to Dave Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter, of 5 stars, which Ospreay thanked him for on Twitter and referred to him as Uncle Dave. I don't want to delve into their relationship. I'm sure it's totally normal. So yes, Will Ospreay is once again my wrestler of the week, but next week, of course, it could have all changed by then because there's the big 20 points up for grabs, and I'm just going to throw out a few names that I think could really benefit from those big 20 points and could even be my wrestler of the week next week. This is just a little sneaky unofficial preview. I'm just going to zip out a few names. So obviously Sabre Jr, he can always do really well. Matt Riddle has a few big matches, one against Zack, one against James Ellsworth, and that's all right. He's got one against Suzuki as well, Minoru Suzuki, tonight at an event called Matt Riddle's Bloodsport. Very appropriate indeed. I also think Gargano or Ciampa could win. I also think Charlotte or Asuka could win, and I also think AJ or Nakamura could win, and I also think that Darby Allin, remember him, I got very excited about week 3 or 4 about Darby Allin, not just his wrestling, but his beautiful face as well. He's got 2 big marquee matches this weekend against Keith Lee and Walter, 2 much larger men than he, but I think he'll wrestle really well indeed. There's so many people that could be wrestler of the week. It could be Almas or Aleister Black as well. There's so many possibilities. It could even be Roman Reigns. Who knows? Could be Roman. So now let's take a look at the league table. As you can see, Will Ospreay has overtaken Sabre Jr. and is now number 1 on the Wrestlers of the Week league table. Also, Kazuchika Okada has leaped into 3rd place and Marty Skirl into joint 4th alongside Johnny Gargano. Cody has also leapfrogged a few people a little bit further down and now sits just ahead of Andrade Cien Almas. But will he be there after WrestleMania weekend and that big match against Kenny Omega? And that brings me to the end of the video, in which I tell you that also today we're going to do a video where I just look at 10 matches that you must see over the course of WrestleMania weekend. So look out for that on the channel, and thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. You can check me out on Twitter at Jack the Jobber. You can follow all of us at Cultaholic, and you can check out our Patreon as well, patreon.com/Cultaholic. Thank you very much for watching, and never forget, of course, to join us.